Fight or die. Those are the two choices presented to Russia's soldiers. Many, however, are choosing a third option, abandoning their duties, regardless of the prison sentences that await them. We mentioned that Russia's soldiers aren't being trained in basic first aid. The Ministry of Defense, MOD, states that a lack of training in general is yet another reason why so many of the country's troops choose to go AWOL. A contract soldier can arrive at the front lines within 14 days of signing a contract and receive only 5 days of relevant military training. The MOD says most of Russia's soldiers aren't ready for what awaits them in Ukraine. And that seems to be by design, as Putin desperately tries to get more bodies onto the battlefield. News of Russia's training problems is hardly new. In September 2024, Business Insider reported on comments made by George Barros of the Institute for the Study of War. He told the outlet, "I find myself being surprised by the new depths of how poor the quality of the Russian individual soldier is. Each new batch of recruits seems to be getting progressively worse than those who came before. It's becoming really difficult for me to see what additional shortcuts they could take, other than maybe deploying people entirely unfit for service." Barros concludes that the bar for entry into Russia's military is now very, very low, and it is this lack of training that is responsible for a huge number of the casualties Russia is experiencing in Ukraine. We see an example of the results of this lack of training in Russia's current summer offensive, according to the Washington Post. The paper claims that Russia's military is now incapable of conducting complex operations due to several issues: poor training, corruption, massive equipment shortages, logistical failures, and a lack of military intelligence. It also quotes independent military analyst Ian Matveev, who says these mass assault tactics are the only thing the Russian military is capable of at the moment. He describes it as very inhumane because, in effect, dead bodies are being traded for territory. Imagine yourself in the shoes of a Russian soldier. From the moment you enter the army, you're subjected to brutal hazing that continues once you arrive on the battlefield. Sure, your pay is good, but the 5 days of training you received are barely enough to learn how to fire your rifle, let alone take part in massive human wave assaults against well-defended Ukrainian positions. You accept that your only way out is to get injured or head back home in a body bag. Then the injury happens. Even then, you're mistreated. Assuming you even make it to a hospital, the medical facility often doesn't have enough supplies to treat you properly. And to add insult to injury, the military comes calling again long before you've recovered, showing you that Putin cares about nothing more than getting more bodies onto the battlefield. How would you react to these conditions? Over 20,000 Russian soldiers have reacted by going AWOL, with thousands more deserting their posts permanently. But Putin is nothing if not forgiving to his AWOL soldiers. Those who have second thoughts about being sent to a Russian prison, brutal in its own right, are offered an opportunity. They can commute their sentences by returning to the front lines as part of a Storm Z unit. These military units, established by April 2023, are composed largely of convicts. An AWOL soldier should think twice before taking this option. In October 2023, Reuters reported on the fates of many in Storm Z units. One unnamed soldier who disobeyed orders to deliver medical care to troops in these units said, "Storm fighters, they're just meat." He told the story of how his commander ordered him to refuse treatment to soldiers in these units, showcasing that they're considered of lesser value than regular Russian troops. Even when an AWOL soldier goes to prison, they can't fully escape Putin's push to return to the military. If they accept, they face even worse treatment than they endured before going AWOL. There are two things Russia's massive numbers of AWOL troops tell us. Morale is terrible in Russia's army, and Putin's summer offensive is doomed to fail on the morale front. The problem is that Russia's soldiers are fighting for a cause in which many do not believe. According to the National Interest, writing in December 2024, unlike the Ukrainians, who are fighting to defend their country from an existential threat, the Russian rank and file are fighting for something they do not associate with. When the going gets tough, as it does, because the Russian strategy is one of attrition, morale and discipline issues arise everywhere. That's how you get soldiers rioting in medical facilities, and it's also how you get troops going AWOL. Regarding Putin's summer offensive, we've already touched on the issue of poor training. The offensive is now stalling. On June 29th, The Telegraph published a piece showing how dire the situation has become. It notes that Russia is currently pushing in several locations, including Sumy, Kharkiv, and Donetsk. Russia broke its own record for the number of ground assaults launched in a single month this June, according to the outlet. Yet none of these assaults have led to any meaningful breakthroughs. In Sumy alone, Russian forces have completely stalled. While gains are being made elsewhere, they are for small scraps of irrelevant territory rather than any of the major targets Putin has set. So many Russian troops going AWOL partially explains why this offensive is failing. The reasons behind these soldiers' decisions offer even more explanations. Poor training, inadequate care, bullying on the front lines. It all adds up to a simple fact. Russia's military is far from the powerhouse Putin claims it to be, and it is only going to get weaker as more of Russia's soldiers abandon his cause. But it's not just his own soldiers that Vladimir Putin has to worry about. Ukraine is hitting Russia hard thanks to the brilliance of its security service, the SBU. Nothing in Russia is safe anymore, as Ukraine has just pulled off something unbelievable.